some of my humanity.
You were in a bank robbery?
I was in a bank robbery.
The Bible calls us to love.
Said that to me again. EJ.
What's up?
Eddie Johnson.
Yes.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Mostly myth.
Mostly. Get out of here. So first, man, just give me a rundown of how you got to where you are now. You're East Coast, right?
Originally, yes. Born in Bronx, New York.
The Bronx.
The Bronx. I could talk like this. Hey, how you doing? Hey, quarter, water, order. Hey, let me get a chopped cheese. Hey, let me get a bacon, egg, and cheese. Hey, how you doing? Hey. Originally born.
You can do that.
I can do it. I can go there.
What?
If I was just in New York about a month ago for a couple of days watching some basketball. Yeah, so here's what I like to tell people. My mom was born in Tottenham, England. My dad was born in Kingston, Jamaica, and I was born and raised in Bronx, New York. So when I get my whole family together, it's like the United Nations because everyone has an accent. Yeah, originally from New York, moved to Washington, basically middle school on. I moved to Washington. My dad died when I was 6 years old, and it's just a lot easier to raise kids with your single mom with a couple kids, raising them in Tacoma, Washington versus Bronx, New York. Cost of living, safety, all the things. Even though when we moved to Washington in the early to mid '90s, Tacoma was just like one of the worst.
It was a little rough at the time.
It's a little rough.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
the murder capital of the world or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But I lived in Lakewood. Uncle was stationed at JBLM, so that's how I got out here. And then middle school, high school, Lakewood kid, Lakes High School. But also Lakewood, Tacoma. I love the 253. Moved away for a long time, but moved back and fell back in love when I moved back. So, man.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
That's good. So you work currently over at Young Life.
Yeah, I am what's called area director for Lakewood, Steilacoom, and DuPont Young Life. Basically, my job is we have about 3 high schools and middle schools that feed into that. There's, oh man, I forgot. I have I was looking at the numbers recently, but I don't know. There's roughly, I think, 12,000 adolescents in my community, I think is what it is, somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah, roughly 12, maybe somewhere around 10. I'll just say 10 because I think that's easier to say. But my job is to, I find people who love Jesus who say, hey, I want to be a loving, living witness for Jesus Christ in the life of an adolescent. And I want to be an example for Christ, whether they know him really well or don't know him at all. Obviously, for those who don't know him at all, that's great when you can build relationship and rapport with them and share the gospel with them in fun and relational ways and love them and being with them regardless of their response. So that's what I get to do. So I have, we have 20 plus volunteers that work with kids actively. We have another probably 10 or so, 10 to 15 that do a lot of things behind the scenes and it's great. And I love my community. And then also I get to teach at my local church, and I do some work with some school districts as well, which is also fun for me. So,
Man,
yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. So Young Life, here's a question for you. Have you ever been to Wild Horse Canyon?
Yes. So it's now called Washington Family Ranch.
Really?
Yes, that's the new name. It's been the name for probably almost a decade now. The Washington family. I don't know the Washington family, but I guess I could say this. They gave a lot of money, so Young Life changed the name.
Change the name. I like that.
But yeah, the Washington family basically helped make that place happen. But yeah, while I have been to Wild Horse Canyon, aka Washington Family Ranch, both Creekside and Canyon. There's 2 camps there now. Did you go there back in the day?
I did.
When did you go there?
I went there when I was 8th grade, so 1999.
Yeah. That's around when it opened, I think. Yeah. You were probably one of the first groups to go there because I think it opened like 98 range.
Really?
Yeah.
It actually, now that I think about it, it all looked pretty new. Dude, it was the best thing in the world. It's
amazing.
And for me, I grew up in church and my father was a pastor and I given my life to Christ earlier in life. So when I didn't realize that it was outreach. I thought it was just a place where churches were getting kids to go and have fun in the summertime. And I just remember, shout out to Trinity Presbyterian Church down there in Tacoma. They helped a lot of our local kids get fundraising to go to Wild Horse Canyon. And we took this long bus ride. It's the longest bus ride I've ever been on in my life. And it was so much fun. It was so much fun though. We get down there and I'm losing my mind. Because like they had the food, they had the blob. I don't know if they still have the blob.
Don't have the blob more.
They don't have the blob.
Insurance.
That makes a lot of sense. They had the ropes course.
Yep, still have that. It's improved.
They had like it looked like a brand new gym kind of a thing. Like it was we were just running games left and right. And then what really hit me was,
did they have go-karts when you were there?
They didn't have the go-karts.
Okay, that I think came in later. Yeah, but they have go-karts.
They showed the Passion.
Okay.
Passion of Christ.
Yeah.
And like, and it was the first time I saw it. So we're all in this, I think like the chapel area.
Yeah.
And they're showing the Passion of Christ. And like, I just remember like the movie was over, or like, and maybe they only showed a clip of it. I mean, mind you, this is some years ago now. But I just remember it was over, and I was thinking to myself, like, I've never seen like a resurrection crucifixion movie presented in this way, right? And I had seen some in my time. When the movie was over, I heard nothing but sniffling.
Yeah.
And kids were literally wailing. And it was like, so that's like, I don't remember a whole lot about Wild Horse Canyon, besides it was a lot of fun and we got to eat this, like the food was amazing for me. Yeah. But like that's one thing that hit me so heavy was that like the impact that it had on people's lives in the room. And I knew that there were some lives in the room at that time who didn't know God. And I can only imagine, and I remember they opened up the floor like, hey, does anyone want to talk about this? They had like little breakout groups and things like that. And kids were just going crying. And like, I don't know, but I feel confident to say I'm sure some lives were, brought to Christ that night. So what you guys are doing is amazing.
Hey, it's, I was introduced to Young Life as an adult. Did not grow up being a Young Life kid, but I've heard so many amazing stories of folks who Young Life is such a seminal part of their story, whether they went to Wild Horse Canyon, Washington Family Ranch, Malibu, which is the one that that's the gold standard, the crown jewel, all that sort of stuff. But I think that's the reason why I've said yes to Young Life is because at the end of the day, we can poke and prod and say good, bad things about everything, every organization, every system. But Young Life at the end of the day has made a laser focus to say adolescents need to know about Jesus, and they need adults in their life who care, and they need to have fun, and they need to have the gospel presented to them a way that makes sense to them. Yeah. And that to me is amazing. I was telling you before we turned the mics on, right? It's like a lot of my job isn't just working with kids. It's working with the adults to get the adults to realize this is what kids need. And when that switch gets flipped and I see adults realize, oh, I get it. This is how I can like share the gospel with a kid. And it's different in some ways that I share with an adult, but it's also not different in some ways. And quite frankly, a lot of us, hey, if we're being honest, a lot of us believers don't necessarily share the gospel at all, even the most well-meaning believers. So if I can give anyone the tools to say, hey, this is what it looks like to share the gospel, to have it be fun, dynamic, interesting, honest, real, truthful, but engaging, like there's power in that. So I love it. I love watching that light bulb, like I say, switch on, not just for a kid who says yes to Jesus for the first time, but for that adult who loves Jesus, who the light switches on and they're like, wow, this is how I can share the gospel. This is fun. I want to do this more. That's a game changer.
Dude, I love that. So what are some things that people think that you do versus what you really do? The number one thing people think that I do, and context also, I was a youth pastor for a long time. I've been in ministry about 20 years now. I think actually a little over 20 years, we'll say. I think I hit 21 actually, which is crazy to think. But in full-time ministry, I've youth pastored a few different areas, states, churches, and then Young Life the last eight or so years. And a lot of people think because I work with youth, they think you're the fun games, goofy, silly kid guy. And that's part of it. Hey, I'm gonna be honest. I have a picture. I just post my Instagram of me dressing up in a sequin jacket and acting in goofball, and I love it. And because I think we sometimes take ourselves a little too seriously, and it's okay to enjoy. But I think what people don't realize so much of what I do is actually, like I said, is I train adults to be missionaries. What is a missionary? A missionary is someone who comes from one land, who comes from one land, goes to a foreign land. They have to learn the language, the customs, the ideas, the thoughts, the feelings, all the things of a foreign people, and they translate the gospel
into their language, into their culture, so that Christ can be glorified and lifted up. There is no more foreign land than trying to train a 40-year-old to get to know a 15-year-old. You know what I mean? All right. And there's nothing more powerful than when you're 35 and you're building a relationship with 12, 13 years old. You're getting to know their parents, their schools, their teachers, their context, and you're finding out what Riz means. You know what I'm saying? You know what it means when a kid is down bad. All of a sudden, when you're 30, 40 years old and you understand that lingo,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, so Riz, charisma.
Okay.
Charisma, Riz. Down bad, back in our day, sprung.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it'd have been sprung, would have been a way you could say down bad. Also, down bad is just anytime when you're like in it. You're just you're deep in it.
Yeah.
So So the fact that I know that is I'm a linguist.
Fluent. You're fluent in many different languages.
Exactly. But that's the part that I don't think people realize is I actually do a lot more work. I would say if you I probably work more than 40 hours a week, but if you were to section out my 40 hours a week, probably 30, 35 of it is getting adults on board in some capacity, encouraging them, reminding them it's okay to it's okay that you're figuring it out. It's okay that you're saying yes to hard things, which is crazy because it's the same thing we do with kids, right? You got kids. How old are your kids again, Bobby?
6 and 4.
6 and 4, right? You're teaching your boy and a girl or 2 girls?
A boy and a girl.
Boy and a girl, yeah. You're teaching your kids it's okay to do hard things. Mm-hmm. It's okay to you got to climb this hill, you got to jump this hurdle, you got to do that stuff. Well, with adults, working with adolescents, working with teenagers, you got to remind them hey, this is a hard thing and it's okay. It's okay that you got to work at this. It's okay that it doesn't come naturally. It's building a muscle. It's building something that when you work this muscle out and you see how it works and how it operates and you see the impact you can make. One of the greatest things for me, I'll just stick the last 10 years. A lot of young people I worked with 10 years ago are now in their mid to late 20s. A couple of them are even in their early 30s. And it's wild to think that I got all these homies, all these guys and girls, they come back to my wife and I, and they just, we're officiating their weddings. We're seeing them have kids. We're seeing all these amazing things happen. Some of my kids have kids older than my daughter. Wow. You know what I mean? And it's amazing when you get to see the seed and the investment you started a decade ago or more. You get to see how it returns now. So it's pretty cool.
That's like the ultimate blessing is to see the fruits of your labor from so long ago. It probably gives you a lot of hope also to even keep pushing forward, right? I mean, knowing that the work that you're doing, it does matter. Yeah. So question for you. So if someone is interested in working with youth, when I used to work at the Boys and Girls Club, I used to tell my staff when we would do interviews, some people have it and some people don't.
Yep.
Right. Let's be honest.
That is true.
Right. What is something that you look for when you are, looking for a volunteer or staff to work with, a group of kids? Is it just the want to be around them, or do you look for, do they need to have swag, or do they need to have,
So number one, I would say no. Okay. You could be the dorkiest. You could be the most clumsy, whatever. Sometimes those are the best leaders. I'll say this. I would say for you, when you said someone say have and they don't, I don't think it's necessarily talent or skill or some riz.
Yeah. Some riz. Yeah, that's good.
I don't think it's that. I think it always comes back to the willingness. Are you willing to laugh at yourself?
Come on.
Are you willing to maybe have a kid look at you and be like, yeah, what are you doing here, old man? Get up out of my face. Are you willing to strike out and maybe this feels uncomfortable and it feels weird? Now I'm at the place where for most of the schools in my community, I can walk onto the campus and I have friends, whether it's teachers, administrators. I know a kid because I know their parents or they're my neighbor or something like that. So I'm blessed because I've been in my community a long time where I've got a lot of relationships. There's maybe, I don't know how many schools we have, but there's maybe only 2 of our schools where I probably really don't know anybody. Every other school I know a decent amount of people, and most of my leaders know a decent amount of people. So it's great now. But it took a lot of work to get there. It took a lot of no's. It took a lot of why are these older people 20, 30, 40 years old volunteering at a football game? Why are they showing up to basketball games? Why are they why are you the same person that you're at my basketball game? You're also now at this choir concert. Principals say, wondering, oh, well, hey, you're a person of faith. Can I trust you? Are you just coming here to like build your thing, or do you really want to come here and serve? Parents who are like, hey, I got burned when I was a kid, and I went to church, or I did religious things. I don't know if I want my kid to do that, right? It takes a lot to earn that trust with people. But when you earn that trust with people, great things happen. So coming back to fully answering your question, like, the thing I look for is, are you willing to like say, hey, if I say yes to this, I'm not gonna hit a home run in a year. I might hit a single or a double in 2 years, and I might not hit a home run for 3 or 4 years. That's what I look for. Are you willing to say, hey, it's probably gonna be 6 months to a year before I really feel like I know people and people know me and they trust me. And that's hard. Even with Jesus, right? You realize, like, even with Jesus' disciples, like, number one, they didn't all start following him day one. They didn't just jump on board, like, hey, Jesus, we all in this. Yeah, no, he talks to them sometimes multiple times before they followed him. And even when they followed him for 3 years, some of them are like, hey, are we sure we doing the right thing here? You know, we 100%? Okay, we might be 100%. And I think it's the same thing with the community. When you're stepping into communities where faith, people of faith aren't, it's not church. Like, I have principals that are gay, kids that are struggling with identity and all this other stuff. And whoever their story is, they may have an idea about me being the church Christian Jesus person. And my job is to, is not necessarily like, I don't feel the burden to like diffuse all that, but I do want to make sure people know that, like, I love you for you. Jesus loves you for you. We can figure out all the theology and all the this, that, and the other later, but like, I want you to know that you belong, you're loved, you're accepted as who you are. I'm gonna let the Lord poke and prod and convict you wherever you need to change. But I'm gonna invite you into that space so that you know that you're loved, and that whole process takes time. And so I tell people all the time, like, that's a lot of work. And I used to apologize for how much work that is. But now I tell people, like, if you're willing to say yes to that much work, you have a chance to make it. So yeah, long answer.
No, this is good. That was really good.
Yeah.
You got to put the time in, and you got to be willing. I love what you said. Like, you got to be willing to go through those no's. That's something that I think, I had a conversation yesterday, and we were just chatting about like this individual's experience going through different no's and getting these no's throughout the years. But the calling was still there. And they were just always questioning it because the door was closed. The door was closed. But then when the door opened up, they realized that without getting those no's, right, like the calling that they're stepping into, they wouldn't be able to like withstand that pressure. So I think there's a lot of beautiful, just components to that. I want to switch it up for you just a little bit. So like, our youth are facing things, and we talked when we were getting coffee the other day, our youth are facing things now that they weren't facing like 10 years ago. Cyberbullying was not a thing when we were in like middle school and high school and stuff like that. Like, what are some of the major issues or hurt that you're seeing in this generation right now? And what are some things that people can do? Like, what are some things that, do you have to be a part of Young Life to help out? Or like, what are some things that parents might be able to do, or, uncles and stuff like that?
All right. I'm going to try to be succinct here. Number one, I think I'm an advocate. I know. If you're a parent, be proactive, be engaged, and don't give your kid a fully operational cell phone until high school.
Oh, I love that idea.
I think that's what I've been wrestling with this for a while. There's a lot of studies out there. I say fully operational cell phone. There's all these different cell phones out there where you can kind of graduate them into something more powerful, or like, or something more robust, or give them an old cell phone of yours that it's so old it won't hold on to certain apps and things like that. It's just for dialing mom and dad and grandma and grandpa type of thing.
It's actually for phone use.
It's for phone usage. Hey, okay, hold the phone like this, not like this, right? If we were on the camera, I'm making whatever, moving on. There's just so much. You talk about cyberbullying. If I could just be blunt, right? When we were kids, how old are you again, Bobby?
36.
You're 36. Okay, I just turned 42, right? All right. When we grew up, you're at the point where, like, and I'm not advocating violence, but like, if you had a bully, there was like, sometimes you get in a fight. I'm not saying getting in fights is the right thing or wrong thing, but I know I experienced this, especially when I moved to Washington for the first time. There's a couple times I got in a couple fights, and especially young men, right? Everyone wants to muscle up. I'm big man on campus type of thing. And then you get respect, you earn respect, and then you shake hands and you're like, hey, we move on, we're good. I know it's a little bit different with girls, but with guys, usually, Bobby looks at his wife and nods his head. Just gonna give you for those of you who aren't watching. But there's something, there's some closure is what I guess I'm trying to say. And there's no closure with online attacks, cyberbullying, and threats, because it's something that what's on the internet lives forever, right? And I mean, there's things, there's some ugly things, man. I've heard some ugly stories just from that side alone, and that's only one thing. And in some ways, that's kind of extreme. It happens all the time, but there's some really extreme things out there. But I just find I don't think teenagers need a cell phone until they hit high school, a fully operational cell phone, because a friend of mine who does a lot of coaching of people in ministry. I was sitting in on a seminar he taught. He said kids are amazing observers, terrible interpreters. They're great observers, terrible interpreters. So they see all the information, but they don't know what the information means. So this is why mom and dad, this is why when whatever, I do stuff that my daughter picks up on. You do stuff your kids pick up on. And we're like, oh man, you got that from me. Yeah, I didn't want you to do that, because they're observing you all the time, but they can't tell the difference between mom and dad, friend, family in this mode versus that mode. They're positive, the negative. They just see what's happening and they mimic it reflexively. And that's true for society and culture. When we just hit kids with just barrage of information, not even hear me when I say this, I don't necessarily even mean negative information, just the overwhelming information. They're left to their own devices to discern and to filter through all the information they're getting. And that's hard. That's hard for us as adults, right? Yeah. We're bombarded with marketing. We're bombarded with stimulus and stimuli. And it's hard for us to discern what's right and what's wrong. Can you imagine what it is for an impressionable 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13, 14-year-old and younger? And so if you're a parent, you have to be engaged and active. And I don't think kids should have a cell phone until they hit high school. I really don't. Because I just think you save them from so much stuff. Every family and every kid each their own. But if you want to do things like social media, graduate them into it. Talk to them about step by steps. Hey, you know what? You're not going to have an Instagram until you're in 8th grade. And when you're in 8th grade, you can follow, I don't know, I'm just making up stuff at this point, but something like that. Or because you just have to protect their innocence. Protect their joy, protect their well-being, and navigate those spaces. So that's what I would say for parents, and I'll kind of segment it. That's one thing for parents. It's not simple, easy to do, but it's simple but not easy to do. And I have a young daughter, so I'm a while away from this part. But it's something my wife and I talk about. And my wife works with preschool kids. I work with teenage adolescents. So I've always made the joke from 0 to 9. My daughter is my wife's from 10 plus, which
you're mine.
You're mine. But there's some truth to that in the sense that my wife has a degree in early childhood education. And she sees things I don't see because she knows about young developmental at that stage of development. And there's things that I see when I think about an 11, 12-year, 13-year-old, because I've worked with them for so long, and 15, 16, 17-year-old, that I'm like, oh, I see some stuff that, you know what, when Camille gets to this point, I need to make sure that I'm engaged in these specific ways. For folks who maybe it's not your kids, but you're dealing with, but your kids in your community, your church, or whatever, I would recommend this: your local church, especially if you want to work with kids in the building, in the house. Not all churches, but most churches focus primarily on their population of kids that come through the families and whatnot. Volunteer, serve, youth group, children's ministry, whatever. If you feel like, hey, I want to get outside of the walls of the church, there's ministries like Young Life, or your church might have some things going on. I was a part of a lot of churches that did things outside of the church as well, boys and girls clubs. But I repeat, be willing to say yes to saying, I'm not just saying yes for this semester. I'm saying yes for a couple semesters.
That's good.
I'm saying yes for a couple of seasons. It's like coaching, right? Once we start coaching a kid and we start seeing them develop and grow, man, you want to keep being a part of that. So if you're a parent, if you're a community member, someone who wants to support, and then the last thing I'll say to that is age does not matter. You could be 22 and want to pour into some young people. You could be 52. And every every stage of the game. Man, there were a lot of grandmas and grandpas. You grew up in church, Bobby. There's probably a lot of old heads, right?
Oh, yeah.
Some grandmas and grandpas who pulled you aside and said, hey, young buck, hey, this is, even if they didn't say that, they just modeled it for you, right? Man, I can, Kathy Donnelly, Pat Donnelly, Mark and Marge Green, Ellis Taylor, I can, and Tracy Taylor, I can give you lists of folks who, Ellis and Tracy were in their 20s and 30s, Mark and Marge Green were in their 50s, and their son was one of my best friends. But they were adults in my life who modeled different things that I got to learn from. And and so it doesn't matter who you are. You can be young, you can be old, you can always be giving back.
I love that, man. I do, and you're absolutely right. There are some I could do the same thing. Just start listing, folks that have really been present in my life, and some of them still even contact me.
Yeah,
they. There's this guy named Deacon Turner. He'll just call me randomly.
Amen.
And
come on now.
he always calls me with like a joke. He'll be like, "Hey, Bobby, the Seahawks might need a new quarterback. You up for it?" That's just kind of like, his thing. And I'm all, it's just, and he's just like, "Hey, I just wanted to call, let you know I love you. And we're proud of you. We're praying for you." And I'm just like, man, that guy has known me since I've been literally an infant. And he still does that, So I think you're spot on. Just being able to be present in the lives of our youth is so important. I want you to just stay there for a moment, but let's talk about the importance of men showing up in the community. Can we? I'm
gonna take a drink real quick.
Take a drink. Yeah, go ahead. Take a drink of the coffee. Can we get into that? Because I've heard you say a few times, schools are looking for men that want to be present and things like that. So just kind of go into that.
I was talking to a superintendent recently. I said, if I had 5 guys who men, Bobbies, Eddies, Deacon Turners, what would you do with them? One here, one there, one ripping them off. There is, and hey, for all those friends out there, this is not the patriarchy. This is nothing like that. We're not getting into all these. Don't let all the cultural buzzwords get at you. But there is something powerful about when men step up to lead intentionally, not haphazardly. It's not better than women, but it is different than women, and vice versa. I would say the same thing, but especially in the church world. We have historically, in American church world, Western, for the last several decades, it's been a lot of women filling in those gaps. That's amazing. That's great. Some amazing women have been a part of my story. But man, when you see a man step up and can say things to young men, can be an example for women who've never seen a healthy male leader. I was talking, there's one of my guys just moved to Texas. Shouts to Aiden, because I can share some of this stuff. Aiden Miller he and I talk all the time about how, hey, there's been some men in his life who've really given him some good structure and encouragement. I'm blessed to be one of them. And we were just talking about that, and it's important. And they come from different places in different ways. But there's something special. There's something different about when men intentionally lead, especially because, I'll say this, I'll focus on young ladies. Divorce rate, 50, 60, 55, 60%, right? Divorce rate in America. We know a lot of people go through divorce. That means there's probably been a few dads have done wrong by their wives, their exes, and their daughters and whatnot. And not blaming them, not pointing the finger, but being able to step into a situation and say, hey, let me show you what this looks like. Let me show you why, hey, your dad's not a bad guy, but hey, here's some things that let me encourage you with. Vice versa, young man. Hey, I know it's probably hard to trust men because you've seen whatever with your dad or this, that, the other. But hey, let me show you why you can keep going, why you can press on. We have dads that aren't even in the pictures, right? A lot of times. We have all these things that go on, and I just think it's so important that we have good pictures. There's a book. It was written by anyway. It was an author. I'm blanking on it. It's called Why Do Fathers Matter? and I'm not going to get super deep into the science, but it was written by a biologist who just did a bunch of research on the fact that like clearly there's something about the seed and the egg, the two distinct parts, that they need to work together to fertilize and bring together life. Did a bunch of research on it, and then they took that into not just the biological side, but they did some sociological work, they did some psychological work, and just looked at like why fathers matter. And at the end of the day, the end result was simply this: we have seen the oaf, the Homer Simpson type of dads, right? Where like we've seen these pictures, oh, dad's just whatever, and I don't get too caught up in all these things, but I think there is some truth here. Dad is an oaf, dad's a goofball. Homer Simpson, Al Bundy, if you want to go back a few years before, all these kind of dads who are just oafs, and they just are the whatever. They're not the men that you would aspire to be. They're the joke. And he just talks about how because from simple basic biology, men matter. We should keep that same mentality, and women matter too. But we're focusing on men, right? I'm not knocking anyone, because in my world, that's all people want to go to. They're like, well, I'm not lifting up one doesn't push down the other. We're just focusing on this one topic. From the beginning of biology, it matters, but all the way through history and culture, it matters. We always should make sure that we're honoring the impact and the opportunity and the ability and the leadership of what men and women, moms and dads bring to the table. Even I have a small group over the church, and we were making a joke of like, oh, we got to take care of the guys, when the wives are gone, because they don't know how to cook for themselves, and they're gonna.
My wife cooks 99% better than
yes,
I do.
and my wife cooks, but like how much we've just like we reinforce the stereotype of like when mom's away, dad can't function.
Oh yeah,
that thing, and I'm all for the jokes. I crack jokes all the time, but it just one of those things where you just go back to, we kind of have built this narrative that dad's a goofball.
Come on.
And dad's not serious. And hear me, I don't get too hung up on this, but like if dad matters in the beginning, dad matters in the middle, dad matters at the end, male leadership matters in the beginning, middle, and I kind of went that in a roundabout way because I wasn't nailing down the specifics, but I just think it's helpful to remember that. It's helpful to remember, like, let me honor everyone who has who speaks into people's lives, and that starts with when you're looking at a biblical family, mom and dad. You're the captains of the ship, right? You're leading the charge. You're setting your kids up for what the Lord has and wants for them. You're doing all that. So let's lift up both mom and dad and what they bring to the table. And also, men, recognize that because of the society we're in, men get dragged a lot. They do.
Yeah.
You have an opportunity, and this is succinct. You could cut out all the other crazy stuff I said before, but I'll leave it to this. Men get dragged a lot in society. You have an opportunity to be a change agent and to be an influence to that. And because for whatever reason, a lot of men just don't step into that space and say yes. So I think we should probably do it. So
well, that's big, man. And I think as we're talking about like our next generation.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, like Homer Simpson and Al Bundy. That's
I know.
funny.
Pull that. Those are old references. I wish I could think of some more modern ones, but
like in my
y'all
mind,
feeling me.
I was like, what about Carl Winslow and like Uncle Phil? Like, but it's interesting because I think what we saw from like a Carl Winslow, we saw a working father, we saw a father who was present, we saw a father who cared and would have tough conversations, and he would lead in hard spaces and things like that. And the same thing with Uncle Phil. We see someone who takes on someone who is not even their own flesh and blood and treats and loves them like they are. There were so many times, like I love this, the episode where he shows up to the pool hall because, like Will and Carlton, like, the pool sharks get him and he's like, Jeffrey, bring out Sally or Betsy.
Whatever it was.
Jeffrey pops it open.
I forgot about that episode. That's one of the best ones too.
But it just shows that he's willing to show up in spaces where they need help, even if that's not his direct son. And the presence of a strong male, and then like how we celebrate that in our culture, how we show that, how we train that. You're right. Like honestly, when Janelle leaves, man, I'll be complaining. Like, she left me here alone with the kids and no food in the house, and like I think and obviously I'm joking, right? I'm not gonna lie, I still do cook like a bachelor though. Like I
Yeah.
still cook the same way. I can survive. Is
Yeah.
what I can do.
Yeah.
And the kids love my cooking.
Yeah,
They say, "Daddy,
that's
you're a
good.
great cook." They do. They love my stuff. But you know, we do joke about those kind
Yeah.
of things, and you know, we probably need to like change that narrative.
Yeah.
I think and we need our young men to see us change that
Yeah,
narrative so that
exactly.
they grow up and they start stepping in those shoes
Yeah.
for the next generation after
Yeah.
them. So I think
Yeah.
that's good, man. I appreciate that. All right, Eddie, you ready? I'm going to
ready.
spit fire questions at you.
Okay.
10-second responses.
Boom. I can
All
do
right.
it.
You
I
ready?
believe. I fingers crossed. Hands. Okay. I'm long-winded. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna make it work on this one.
I feel like it's okay. Everyone
got
that comes
this.
on my podcast, I'm like, I started this for 30 seconds. And then I was like, nah, let me go ahead and whittle this down to 10.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll end at 30.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Worst outfit generation
Wait. What generation has the worst outfits?
that had it in your lifetime.
Oh.
Come on.
Oh man.
Eddie,
Okay.
you know.
I'm gonna say the early 2000s when guys were wearing girls' jeans before like the stretchy skinny jeans came in style. Like when guys were wearing girls' jeans,
Like actual girl jeans.
actual girl jeans. Yeah, man. I lived in Vegas at the time, and it was people running amok. I don't know if it was just like a West Coast Las Vegas, Nevada thing, but dudes were wearing girls' jeans. Worst style choice ever.
I don't even think I remember that.
Yeah, that was like early 2000s, like 2003, 2005 range.
Definitely Vegas.
Yeah, man.
Scene.
It was nah, bro.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was worse.
Interesting. Okay. Here we go. Worst like decade of music.
I'm about to be an old head right now. Y'all about to expose me.
Get it?
Is it right now?
It's right now.
Is it?
You
might
want to
be
go right now?
It might be right now.
I don't think it's right now.
It's recent though.
I'll tell you why I don't think it's right now or
Why?
recent. I think because of the internet, it has pushed out
Yeah.
so many alternative approaches. Like if you want good music, you can find it. It's just not mainstream. Like I think
Yes.
the radio station for sure right now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
for
That's a
sure,
good.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Because I would agree with that. I don't think any of the modern music that comes out that I listen to, none of it gets radio play. You know, it's stuff like Nick D. It's stuff like I can't think of any other artists right now, but yeah. But I would say I'm still gonna say right now, but I'll qualify mainstream music right now.
Yeah, radio played mainstream.
Radio played
okay,
yeah,
I
it's-
get you.
it's
I
worse,
got you.
yeah.
All right, here we go. Let's say, what's the worst like dance move of the next generation of the last 20 years?
Bro, what's the one with the arm wiggle
The floss?
shuffle? The floss.
Can
Yeah,
you
the
do it?
floss. Oh, I can't do
Can
that.
you do
I
it?
can't floss. I think that's why it's the worst, because I can't do it. I'm low key jealous.
Come on, man.
But
You
I
got-
watch these kids that, I mean, I know this is like, it's probably almost a decade ago now. Flossing was like big. It's been a minute.
It hasn't been a decade.
It's
Like
been-
that was like,
I think it's been close.
has it been 10 years?
I think it's been close. It's like, I think it's in like the 6 to 8 range.
2014. They were flossing in 2014. There's no way.
Maybe not 14, but probably 15, 16.
I feel like that was
Because
still
COVID. Because remember, COVID messed everything up.
It did.
We lost 4 years, dog.
like that.
So it might be about 8 years.
I thought we were doing the jerk in 2014.
Ooh, no, the jerk I think was a little before that.
That was
Jerk-
like 2010, 2012.
Yeah, because I can jerk. I'm not gonna do it now because I
I
don't
can
want
jerk.
to.
I know.
The knees. The knees are bad.
The knees are bad now. I don't jerk now. The knees are bad. The knees are bad.
But flossing only because I can't do it.
Okay. All right. Last question. I have a feeling that you have like this MC type of,
Okay.
and I
Yes.
feel like you can drop a hot 16 for no reason off the top.
Could I drop a hot 16 off the? I don't know if I could do 16. I could probably do 8.
Can I get 8? Can I get 8?
I used to write. I used to rap a little bit. I still write.
You used to rap?
Yeah, I used to rap.
Like for real?
Yeah, for real. Yeah.
See, I knew it. You
Yeah,
have
I
the
used to rap
voice.
for real,
Some
for real.
people just have the voice.
What did I just wrote? I just wrote something down the other day. Hold on. Let me see. Mm-hmm. Hold on. I think I have something on my phone I wrote down because I dink around.
While you're looking that up, have you heard about the next gen or the Gen Z Bible?
Yes,
This
the
guy
Gen
that
Z
was,
Bible is amazing.
Did you see that clip of the guy reading it?
Yes. Uh-huh.
About the birth of Jesus.
Yeah.
I was like, that was and the crazy thing was this: he read it, and I actually understood what he was saying because I
Yeah.
know this, I know
Uh-huh.
that
Yeah.
passage of scripture, and I was just like, this is cringy, but also at the same time pretty creative.
Yeah.
Right. I was
Yeah.
like, this is He left them all unread and let the Holy Spirit cook. I was like, what did he just say? What?
Okay. In my little notes on my phone, I got 2. They're not even 8. They're
Hold on.
just they're lines.
Let me be a hype man real quick. Exclusive.
Okay. I got to remember how this one goes. Hold
Eddie
on.
J.
Him, all power and glory goes to him, past and present, the future, his story. Somebody call. Oh, I messed it up. I already messed it. Hold on, I messed it up.
Rewind it.
I got to, because I remember actually how this beat. I put this beat in my head. You know what? I'm gonna do this other one because this one I know how it goes.
I was feeling that. Though.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Call me the last Mohicans because I'm rocking these moccasins. I'm on fire, so depriving of my oxygen. Dom Toretto, this one's for the family. I know I'm dope, so you can go ahead and keep your Grammys.
It's all about family. Let's go.
Yeah. I just messed around. Nothing serious. I had it for a while when I first, like when Twitter was big in 2009, or it's still big, but when it first started and everyone was on it, I did like a month or two of just like, off the top of the dome. If I had a line that popped in my head, I would pause. I would post it to Twitter, and it was like a month solid where I think I did like one every other day or something like that, and that's probably the coolest thing. But yeah, man, I just dink around in my head. I don't ever do anything for real, but yeah. So I'm embarrassing myself right now is what I'm trying to tell you all. I'm embarrassing myself. But
it's okay.
Yeah, I don't care. I'm at the point where I don't care anymore.
Eddie, I appreciate you, bro.
Bobby, my
Thanks
brother.
for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Thank you to your family, Harvest Church, Tacoma.
Where can I find out more information about Young Life, about you, with the work you guys are doing?
Personally, for me, Eddie A. Johnson on everything. If it's a social media, Eddie, E-D-D-I-E, the letter A as in Anthony, last name Johnson. You can find me on there. Young Life in general, if you're listening someplace, your area probably has a Young Life area nearby. And if you're in the greater Tacoma, Lakewood area, come hit me up. Eddie A. Johnson, Instagram, Twitter, like at literally everything. If a new thing comes out, I just steal the username Eddie A. Johnson, even if I don't ever use it. LinkedIn,
right
Eddie
away.
A. Johnson, I have it. I'm never on half these things, but I'm there. So thanks, Bobby.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you,
Yeah,
bro.
brother.